Hey guys, how you doing? Just wanted to give you guys a bit of an update of what's going on. I'm almost done my course. Today we had the simultaneous certification exam. Tomorrow is the consecutive. But I wanted to share some things that I learned while taking this course. Not about interpreting specifically, but more kind of general thing. That way you guys can take it and apply it to the things that you're learning. So we'll just crack right into it. It's just two things. The first one, we'll call it that was then, this is now sort of mentality. Which is that up until the time I got into this course, and even a couple of weeks after I got into the course and was here, I still was carrying this one thought with me, which was that, my Japanese has never been good enough to get me into anything. I always defined myself somewhat as a guy who, among various other things, I'm a guy who's pretty good at Japanese, but not really that good. It's only good enough for personal use, really. That's how I define myself. And I kept that thought with me, and I was still surprised to be here because, that thought kept bouncing around. Oh, I've never been good enough to get into anything. But that was actually a problem because there was times where it sapped my confidence when I needed it most. There's times where, we'd be watching a speech given by some politician and the prof would ask, okay, who wants to interpret this section? And I would just kind of sit there like, I'm not doing it. Wait for somebody else to go do it. But then they would go do it and I would realize, oh, that's what I would have said. Darn. I didn't need to doubt myself. That was stupid. So it really held me back. It slows you down. Because obviously, when you start out learning some skill, it doesn't have to be interpretation. It could be a language, martial art, instrument, whatever. You have this idea of yourself as, oh, I'm a person who is this good at this particular skill. Yeah, that may be accurate at the time. But if you've been continuing to learn and improve from, 6 months ago till now, or a year ago until now, that view of yourself is no longer accurate. You need to reassess and then come up with a new view of yourself. Okay, I'm now a person who's this good at this skill. So that your confidence can match your ability level. And I know that's difficult to pinpoint exactly, but you can't allow how good or bad you used to be at something to influence how well you think you can do it in the present moment. That was then, this is now. So that will actually hinder your progress. That's the first thing that I feel is really important. And eventually I realized that I was doing this, that my old conception of myself and how good I was at Japanese before was actually slowing me down and sapping my confidence and preventing me from being able to perform as good as I possibly could. Because, I never used to be this good. I never used to be very good. I used to be a lot worse. That thought, whenever it was time for me to go and interpret, actually made me more tense. And when you get tense, you can't perform as well, physically or mentally. So it screws you up. Yeah, maybe you used to be not so good, but that was 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You've been working on it since then. You've improved since then. That was then, this is now. So that's lesson number one. Then the second thing is when you're learning something new. So obviously in this case, for me, learning how to interpret. You need to forget about how good or bad you think you might be at learning a particular skill. Forget about that and just go do it. And let reality of your performance tell you where you're at instead of your own preemptive opinion. If you're sitting there thinking about learning some new skill, whatever it is, and you're thinking, I don't know, if I tried that, I don't think I'd be very good at it, blah, blah, blah. Forget about that. Just go do it. You may surprise yourself. You may not. You may find out that you're actually just as bad as you thought you were. By the way, that's okay. I'll speak to that more in a bit here. But you may actually find out that you're better at that skill than you thought you would be. I remember during the first 2 weeks, I can't remember exactly when, but we were in the simultaneous training class, and I was doing really bad that day. I was just sitting there like, I couldn't say a word. I was tongue-tied. And then that class finished, and it was time to go over and do consecutive training. I dragged my butt over there thinking, okay, well, I couldn't say a word in simultaneous, so consecutive will probably be able to produce 0 as well. But when it was my turn to go up there and I didn't have a choice to say no, I was actually able to do maybe about 50-60% of what was said, maybe more. But that's still a heck of a lot more than 0, and I was really surprised. I was like, wow, I was actually able to do something, which is a lot more than nothing. It was a lot more than my expectations. So whenever you're thinking of trying something new or taking on a new challenge, a new level, forget about how good or bad you think you might be and just go do it. And to speak to that point I mentioned earlier about, well, what if you actually are as bad as you think you're going to be? That's okay. If you work on it on a regular basis, especially if you work on it every day and you work really hard, you'll be amazed at the progress you can make. I remember when I first started in this course, like I said, I was tongue-tied. I was sitting there trying to say something as the politician was speaking, and nothing was coming out at all, even though I was understanding what they were saying. But a few weeks later, I was able to string together a coherent sentence, and a couple weeks later, I was able to put together a sentence that actually sounded really nice. That sounded like a well-spoken politician giving a speech. So don't worry. If you think you're going to be terrible at it and you actually are, just work on it and you can get to a point where you're actually pretty good. So those are the two things. Number one, that was then, this is now. Maybe when you started out at learning a certain skill, you weren't very good at it, but if you have been regularly working on it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, you need to change your self-conception. Stop thinking of yourself as, oh, I'm just a beginner at this. Start thinking of yourself as, okay, I know a little bit about this. I've got some skill at this. And then if you've been doing it for 10 years, maybe it's time to start having some solid confidence in yourself. Maybe it's time to shed your old idea of, oh, I'm sort of good at this. No, you've been doing it for 10 years, and you've been working hard. If you have been for 10 years. Not off and on, only studying when you feel like it, but no, on a regular basis, frequent regular basis. Maybe it's time to start having some solid confidence in yourself. And then number two, when you're trying something new, or when you're trying to test yourself to a new level, forget about how good you think you're going to be. Just go do it. You may surprise yourself. So with that, I'll see you guys off. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.